Surprise is exactly a week old today. Surprise is 2 weeks old today, 3 weeks old, 4 weeks old, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Surprise is 8 weeks old today, and it has been an interesting 8 weeks. This is Surprise. Say hello. He's going to be our test subject for this video. So the reason I'm making this video is because kittens go through a lot of developmental changes from the ages of 0 to 8 weeks. So I thought it would be cool to document Surprise's development week to week for the first 8 weeks of his life, to help you in case your cat has a kitten or you're fostering orphan kittens. And I got this idea from Kitten Lady because her video really helped me when Bronwyn had her first litter. But the reason I'm making my video is because I noticed some things that she didn't mention in her video. So I thought I'd do my own video and include those things. So before I get into the video, I just want to mention this. Kittens, their body temperature is very important. They need to be provided with a heat source most of the time. But I'm not going to be talking a lot about that in this video because I live in Nigeria at the moment and we have a tropical climate. In fact, we are going through a heat wave right now. So my problem is keeping him cool, not warm. So what Bronwyn has been doing, his mother has been doing, is I keep them in this pen with towels. So Bronwyn takes him out of that pen from time to time and puts him on the cold tile to cool him down. At first, it was jarring because I was like, why is the baby on the floor? But she kept doing it, so I figured she's his mother, she knows best. So I let her continue doing that. Anyway, Surprise is exactly a week old today. At this age, kittens really should be with their mothers, unless it can't be avoided. At this stage in his development, he sleeps most of the time. He only wakes up to eat and go to the bathroom. When he was born, his eyes were closed, but yesterday they started to open. They just started to peel a little. They didn't open fully. Today they're a little more open, but still not fully open. I'm assuming that by tomorrow they'll be fully open. Surprise can't walk yet, but he can crawl. He doesn't crawl a lot. He doesn't crawl far distances because he's still really young, but he does crawl around the pen when I put him in there or on the tile sometimes when he's on the floor. If you have a cat or you've been around cats, you may have noticed that they have retractable claws. You have to push down on the pads of their paws to expose their claws, but at this age, kittens' claws are non-retractable, meaning they're outside all the time. Surprise is exclusively breastfeeding right now. He's not eating any solid food because he has no teeth. So I make sure he has access to his mother at all times. So I make sure she's with him as often as possible. Now, to go to the bathroom, his mother stimulates him with her mouth, like she stimulates his private parts with her mouth to get him to go to the bathroom. And at this age, that's pretty normal because they don't know how to do that on their own just yet. And on day 5, I introduced him to his father. I was wary about doing this because with Bronwyn's first litter, he was very hostile toward those kittens for like the first 5 weeks of their life. But I just wanted to try this time. So I introduced him to Winifred on day 5. And although he wasn't aggressive with him, he really didn't have any interest in him. He just sniffed him and walked away. But then the next day, he took more of an interest in Surprise, so that's good. And I'm also trying to hold Surprise as frequently as I can, to get him used to being held. I try to hold him 2 to 3 times a day for 5 minutes at a time because that wasn't done for his mother Bronwyn when she was a kitten and she does not like being touched. She doesn't like being handled. So I'm trying to not have that happen with Surprise. So I try to hold him to make him comfortable with being held. At the moment, he weighs 156 grams, which is normal, I hear. So yeah, that's all for week 0 to 1 of Surprise's life. Surprise is 2 weeks old today, and the obvious changes that I have noted have had to do with his weight and his eyes. As you can see, he is now a big boy. His head is bigger and his belly is rounder. He is currently 220 grams. Now, as for his eyes, they are now fully open. They started to open on day 6. They just opened a little bit on day 6. On day 7, they opened a little bit more. So day 6 and day 7, his eyes looked a little funny, but that was fine because day 8, they opened wide and they were beautiful, as you can see. And according to my research, although his eyes are fully opened, his vision isn't the best. It'll continue to develop over the next 6 weeks, so that is normal. If you look closely, you can see that his ears are starting to unfold, so his ear canals are opening, which means his hearing is getting better. Another thing that I have noticed is that since his eyes have opened, he doesn't get as agitated when I handle him, like he doesn't squirm or squeal as much when I pick him up. And I would imagine that that's because when his eyes were still closed and I would pick him up, he wouldn't know what was going on. So I think that had more to do with confusion. Now that his eyes are opened, when I pick him up, he knows exactly what is happening. So I think that is why he doesn't fuss as much. He just sneezed. So I think that is why he doesn't fuss as much when I pick him up anymore. Now, as you can see, he is much stronger. He's able to lift his head up by himself now. So that is a plus. Hi! So yeah, he is able to lift his head up now by himself, which is a good thing. But yeah, he's still not capable of walking, but he has a lot more energy. So he moves around more. He's still very uncoordinated, but he's more energetic. He still has no teeth, so he's only breastfeeding for now, but that is to be expected, so I am not worried about that. So yeah, that's all for week 2 of Surprise's life. Surprise is 3 weeks old today, and at his most recent weigh-in, which was this morning, he came in at 300 grams, which is 80 grams more than he was this time last week. So I'm really happy with his development as it relates to his weight. Now, about his eyes, I'm a little bit concerned about that because based on everything I've read and all the videos I've watched about kitten development, when kittens first open their eyes, the color is usually blue or baby blue, and then it changes over time to their permanent cat eye color. And that was the case with the kittens from Bronwyn's first litter, but it seems to be different with Surprise. Surprise's eyes are really dark, almost black, so I was concerned that maybe this meant he was blind, but observing him for a while, I noticed that he focuses on things. Like when he looks at me, sometimes he focuses on me and on other things. So he's not blind, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have some sort of visual impairment. So I'm just going to keep watching to see what happens. So I'll keep you updated on that. As for his leg development, he isn't walking yet, but he isn't crawling either. On the spectrum of crawling to walking, I would say he's closer to walking because he's very curious. So he will drag himself around the room to investigate his surroundings. So that to me is more walking than crawling. So I think I'll give it another week before he starts walking. He's still very uncoordinated. So I'm giving him more floor time to practice, using his leg muscles and all of that. So that's what's going on as far as his legs are concerned. I'm also continuing to try and spend more time holding him. So he's getting more comfortable with the feeling of being held. Like he naps in the palm of my hand and on my chest. And I've noticed that when I put him on my chest, he likes to nudge himself up into the crook of my neck and nap there. So that is something I'm noticing that he likes to do. So yeah, I think this experiment of holding him to get him used to human touch is working. He also spends more time awake now than he used to, because in the past when I used to check up on him like throughout the day, he would be asleep except for when he was eating. But now I would say 50% of the time he is awake and the other 50% of the time he's asleep. So he is more alert than he used to be and spends more time awake. He still has no teeth, so he's still exclusively breastfeeding, which is to be expected, so I'm not worried about that. His ears have started to really unfold and like stick up. They're not big yet, but they aren't like as tucked in as they used to be, and I'm noticing that his hearing is improving because he reacts more to sound now than he used to. So his hearing is developing right on schedule. So yeah, those are all the developmental milestones Surprise has gone through during his 3rd week of life. And by the way, remember in the beginning of this series I mentioned that we were going through a heat wave. Well, that isn't happening anymore. The heat wave broke yesterday. So I've noticed that Bronwyn doesn't put him on the floor as much as she used to. So now he stays in the pen all cozy in his towels. Surprise is 4 weeks old today, and a lot has happened for him developmentally over the last week. He has grown into more of his cat-like ways over the last week, so let's get into that. First, last week I was telling you how I was concerned about his eye color, how they were more black than blue. It turns out all I had to do was wait a few days and that problem solved itself. His eyes are now blue and beautiful, so it turns out I was worrying for nothing. As far as his weight is concerned, he is currently 356 grams, so that's good. So now Surprise can officially walk. At first, he was kind of stumbly and uncoordinated, and I noticed that he walked better on my bed or on fabric like towels and stuff, and he was having more trouble on the tile. But as the days progressed, his legs got stronger and he walks perfectly on every surface now. His ears are now upright and fully developed, which means he responds more to sound, so that's good. I've also noticed that he is more interactive. He doesn't have litter mates to play with, so he plays with his mother, and Bronwyn indulges him, so she plays with him in that cat-like way that they have. So by doing that, she's teaching him how to become a cat. His first teeth are coming in fast and furious. They are nowhere ready to start eating solid food, so he's still breastfeeding, but it's good that his teeth are developing as well as they are. Surprise has also started grooming behavior. It's nothing major, but it's good that he's learning how to clean himself. I've also continued spending more time around him and handling him, And what I've started doing is touching his paws more often, so he gets used to that sensation. For in the future when I need to start clipping his claws, so he gets used to the sensation of having his paws handled. Because his parents, especially his mother Bronwyn, hate the sensation of their paws being touched, so I'm trying to not make that be an issue with him. So yeah, that's what I've been doing as far as his paws are concerned. That's all I have for Surprise's 4th week of development. Surprise is 5 weeks old today, and this week is the first time I've started to see him as a real cat. And I feel like the only way to elaborate on that is to jump right into the video, so let's do that. Surprise currently weighs 420 grams, and now that he's able to walk, he's a lot more active, and it is stressing me out. Because if you've ever been around a human child, you know that once they start walking, all they want to do is run. Like, you can barely walk and you're running all the time. That's the same thing with Kittens, because Surprise sprints across the room all day long, and he is so fast that I haven't been able to get it on camera. He is so agile and nimble. He's even jumping off surfaces, high surfaces. I mean, his landings aren't always graceful, but he does try. And now that he's able to move around on his own, he's constantly inspecting his surroundings and objects, trying to figure out what they are, how to interact with them. So yeah, he's very curious and he seeks to satisfy that curiosity. And another thing I've been doing this week is, since my cats are mostly indoor cats, they do come into contact with wires. So what I've been doing this week is letting Surprise around wires and watching him closely when he is around wires. So when he starts to, bite them or play with them, I stop the behavior immediately, so he gets the message that wires aren't to be played with or chewed on. So I'm trying to break that habit before it takes root. I don't know if that makes sense. His eyes are also much bluer and more of his teeth are coming in, but still not developed enough for him to start eating solid food, so he's still breastfeeding for now. So his physical development is well underway. He is also more social with his mother, his father, and me, and I've started to introduce play into his life. I mean, he's not doing anything really impressive yet, but he is starting to play with me and his parents, especially his mother. Another major thing that I've done this week is introduce him to the litter box. So what I use for my cat's litter is just basically sand, sharp sand to be specific. So I put him in the litter box for the first time this week, and at first he didn't know what to do with the sand. He started eating it, and I tried to stop him, but he wouldn't stop. So I just let him for a while, hoping that he would soon realize that the sand isn't edible, which after like 2 mouthfuls, he realized, thankfully. But then after that, he didn't know what else to do with the sand. He just sat there in the litter box. So I took his paw and tried to mimic, digging in the sand, but that message didn't get across until his mother Bronwyn and his father Winifred came and showed him how to do it before he started doing it. So it was a family event, and I was really proud of Surprise because this whole thing took like 5 minutes. He learned it really quick. So yeah, he's really, really smart. Anyway, yeah, that's all for Surprise's 5th week of life. Surprise is 6 weeks old today. He weighs 486 grams. He is still learning how to use the litter box. He isn't perfect yet. I've noticed that he only pees in there. He doesn't poop in there yet. So he still has that to learn, but it's fine. In his 6th week of life, he has so much energy. He does not stay in one place. He is rarely in the same spot for more than 5 seconds. And he is becoming more daring. He is more comfortable jumping off higher heights than he was last week. I am 100% certain that right now he is trying to figure out how to jump down from my hand. And I find that to be so interesting because I got his mother at 10 weeks old and I got his father at 8 weeks old, and they both took at least a month before they were comfortable jumping off even shallow heights. But Surprise, he does it without a care in the world. He continues to play with me, his mother, and his father, so his social skills and interactive skills are developing quite well. So this week I introduced him to cat toys and he has started to interact with them and he has a lot of fun playing with them. I've also noticed that his hunting instincts have started to kick in. He pounces a lot more. He pounces at his mother, at toys. So yeah, he's starting to learn how to hunt and, picking up hunting behavior. I also decided that his teeth are developed enough for him to start trying solid food. So that's what I did. I gave him some solid food. I gave him this canned food that I give my cats. What I did was I took like 4 pieces of this canned food and I mashed it up into a paste and then I gave it to him. At first he didn't know what to do with it, so I touched it to his lips so that maybe if he licked it off his lips, he would realize that it was food. But that didn't happen, and then I realized he was shaking. And all of this was happening in the dining room where he spends no time at all, so I thought maybe that's why he was anxious. So I brought him into the room with the food to try again. But that didn't seem to help, because this time he was a little more curious with the food. He inspected it a little bit and then he walked away. So I had to keep bringing him back to the food until he got comfortable trying it himself. And after that, he was off. He devoured that food. He wasn't able to finish it himself, so his mother helped him finish. But yeah, he really liked it. So now I feed him twice a day with solid food, but he's still not fully developed to be weaned from his mother, so he still breastfeeds. And finally, for this week, he has gotten a lot better at grooming himself. He's still not perfect at it. His mother still helps him from time to time, but he has gotten really, really good at cleaning himself. So yeah, that's all I have for Surprise's 6th week of life. Surprise is 7 weeks old today and he weighs 539 grams. He has become very playful. He will play with anything. He will play with a ball, he will play with string, he will play with a discarded plastic bag. And although he has become this playful, I'm being very careful not to play with him using my hands, because he does bite and claw when he plays, and I don't want him to get used to biting and clawing at people's hands. So I make sure not to use my hands when I play with him. But yeah, he plays a lot these days, and I think it's just because he's so young and he has a lot of energy to expend. Speaking of which, he now has a lot more strength and energy to jump up on things. I've been talking to you about how he's learned how to jump off high heights, but now he jumps up onto things. Because what used to happen before was when he's becoming a little too much, I put him on the floor and then get into bed and like let him do whatever he does on the floor. But now he jumps up onto the bed. I mean, he doesn't make the jump every time, but he does more times than he doesn't. So now I can't get away from him if I want to. He's also developing rapidly. At this stage, his eyes and ears are fully developed pretty much. The best visual representation of this are his eyes. They have started to change from that brilliant blue that they used to be, and they're now changing into his adult eye color. So they're now this kind of yellow greenish hue, and it's so sad to watch. I mean, it's a good thing that he's growing up, but it just signals that he's no longer that baby that needed me and his mother for everything. He's pretty much good on his own. His baby teeth have fully descended, so he's eating a lot more, and I don't have to mush up his wet food like I did last week. Now I just give it to him in the chunks it comes in and he eats it just fine. He is still too young to be weaned from his mother, so he's still breastfeeding. Speaking of his mother, Surprise is really close to Bronwyn. Like when she's around, he really doesn't care about me or his father Winifred. And I have been worried about that because it seemed like he was bonding more with his mother than with his father. But all that changed this week because he started bonding with his father, and they've done that over food. Because when I feed his mother and his father, he runs straight to his father's bowl and eats straight from his father's bowl. And if you know Winifred, you know Winifred does not like to share food, but Winifred lets him, so they bonded over food. But since he's not old enough to eat adult cat food, I don't let him stay there for long. I just let him nibble a bit and then I take him away. But yeah, they've been bonding over food. His hunting skills are also developing. He's taken to stalking his shadow, which I think is so funny. But yeah, he stalks his shadow, he goes under the bed and lays in wait there and waits for me to walk by, and then his little paws like swipe from underneath the bed. He's not the most graceful when he does this, but he does try. And he also, you know, when I'm walking around the room, he runs after my legs in a hunting kind of way. I don't know how to explain it other than to show it. So this is what he does sometimes when I walk around the room. So yeah, he's becoming an experienced hunter. And about the litter box, he's better than he was last week, but he still has a lot to learn. So we're still keeping an eye on that. So I'm trying to coach him along, you know, to use the litter box properly. So yeah, by next week, I think he'll have mastered that. Also, he's old enough to start getting his vaccines, but I'm going to wait a couple weeks before I take him to get his vaccines because I don't think there's any need for us to rush. So we're just going to wait to get that done. So yeah, that's all about Surprise's 7th week of life. Surprise is 8 weeks old today, and it has been an interesting 8 weeks. He weighs exactly 600 grams, and at 8 weeks, he's old enough to be separated from his mother, which means he's old enough to go to his forever home. If he were being adopted, which he isn't, I'm keeping him, so that's not really an issue for us. And since he's old enough to be separated from his mother, he's old enough to be weaned from her, which means he can have wet cat food for all his meals. But since he still has access to his mother, he still breastfeeds, but I've noticed that as time goes on, Bronwyn lets him breastfeed less and less. So I imagine over the next week or two, that'll stop altogether. I also read that at this age, he's old enough to be neutered because his testicles are supposed to have descended. But when I look down, I don't really see anything. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that. And if you remember at the beginning of this, I mentioned that his claws were non-retractable. That has changed. Now they are fully retractable. And that happened over the course of the whole 8 weeks. So yeah, now his paws look like regular cat paws. He has also mastered how to use the litter box. I can't tell you how excited I was when I looked in his litter box and I saw a little turd in there. I mean, I'm not going to show you because ew. But yeah, he is now an expert litter box user. This week, I introduced him to water. You know, cats aren't major water drinkers, so most of their food is designed to be moisture rich, but it's always good to have water on the side. So I introduced him to water this week, and it took him a while to get used to it, but he did, and now he's drinking water with every meal. And over the weeks, I've mentioned how playful he's gotten, and up until now, it's been cute play, but this week, it's become more violent. The way he plays with his mother, I would call it more wrestling than playing, but I hear that this is normal, so I'm also going to be keeping an eye on that. So yeah, that's all for Surprise's 8th week of life. So now you know what to expect if you find yourself having to take care of newborn kittens, either because your cat had kittens or you're fostering kittens. And I want to take this opportunity to say that this video is just a rough guide. It's not chiseled in stone. Your kitten might be faster developmentally than Surprise or slower. It really doesn't matter as long as they end up hitting these developmental milestones. So yeah, this video is just to let you know what to expect, so don't take it too seriously. Anyway, that's all I have for you this week. If you enjoyed this video or you learned something new, please leave a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Audio Jungle.